Welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, June 18th. Reminder, no show tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday with a new episode of Fantasy Football Today. What if we did a rerun? What do you guys think about that? Just throw an old show.
On an episode from 2011.
Yeah. I wish I had one of them. I would love to break down some of that tape, right? Listen to one of our, I started with you guys in 2009. That would be a fun trip back to memory lane if we could find it.
Yeah, let's think back to all those times where we would steal your wallet and hide it in the office.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
I bet
grown adults doing goofy elementary school stuff.
What was the maddest you ever got?
I remember doing an episode in a conference room because that's what we used to have to do. We used to have to take a mixer. I used to have a cart. I had a cart with a mixer and headset.
Roll it around the office.
Right? I have to book a conference room.
Cart.
Rarely the same conference room 2 days in a row, right? Like I would have to book a conference room. We were in, I think it was NCAA. It was in the back corner. And it was late in the season. And I think it was just like a lot of stress. It was a waiver wire show. And I got so mad at you, JV. And I think I used a 4-letter word after the show. I think I cursed at you. I remember that. I was so mad at you. Tensions were running high. But I was kind of hot-headed back then. So that wasn't really.
I mean, you think about like the way that our show has grown and things have changed, and like anytime, little peek behind the curtain, like anytime they talk about like podcasts, like we're usually the standard, like that all the shows at CBS they try to, because of our audience,
making me blush,
our audience, how great it is, and supportive and all those things, and trying to make the other podcasts as prominent as ours, and then we no, you can't do the show in the conference room today because we have to talk about our lunch for the things that we had to do.
So low budget. So it's still, I mean, that's a good thing about podcasting. It's still very low budget, but now we can do it from home. Anyway, I do have some trivia for you guys to start. And today is bold prediction day. 3 bold predictions from Dave and Jamie. So that's 6 total, if I'm doing math correctly here, which is never a given. But let's start off with some trivia. Some of it I think you'll find interesting and maybe fantasy relevant. Some of it is just for fun. Which team ran the fewest plays in the NFL in 2024? It is related to one of your bold predictions.
You mean offensive plays?
Yeah. Not the Titans.
I was going to say the Patriots, but then you just said, well, it's related to one of our bold predictions. So I do not know.
For one of Jamie's bold predictions to become true, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to have to run more plays. They ran the fewest plays in the NFL last year.
Okay.
Which team ran the most plays in the NFL last year?
Chiefs.
Related to our
no.
So no to Dave or no to my question?
Eagles, Philadelphia.
It's the Cleveland Browns.
What?
Yeah, and the Cleveland Browns ran the most plays in the NFL. Which team had the lowest or worst third down conversion rate? Worst third down team last year?
Titans.
I'll give you a hint. We've already said them.
Jacksonville.
Cleveland. Oh, which is amazing that they ran the most plays in football and were the worst third down team in football.
Are you sure these stats are right?
Yeah. Which team had the best third down rate in the NFL?
Philly.
Made the playoffs. I think they lost to the Commanders.
Lions?
Tampa Bay. I think Detroit was second. Tampa Bay had the best third down percentage. By the way, if you had said Detroit for most plays, you would have been tied for correct. They were tied for correct. They were tied with Cleveland for the most plays run in the NFL. All right, so we know the Browns had the worst third down rate. The Bucs had the best. How about 3-and-out rate? Which team had the lowest or best? Oh, okay, sorry, we have a different question here. Which team had the highest or worst 3-and-out rate? So which team had the most possession, highest percentage of their possessions end in a 3-and-out?
Have we mentioned that we've been podcasting since 2009?
Sorry. Get out of the conference rooms. There's another.
I'm down to those 3 crappy teams of Tennessee, New England, and Jacksonville. I'll go with New England.
I'll say
Jamie, I'll give you a hint. Look behind me.
The Giants.
Yeah, the Giants most highest 3-and-out percentage. How about this one?
You know which way your thumb should go?
No. This one surprised me. Which team had the best or lowest 3-and-out rate? Fewest percentage of possessions that ended in a 3-and-out.
And it's a team that surprised you?
Yeah, they did not make the playoffs last year. They had a quarterback change late in the year.
Permanent one?
Yeah.
Atlanta?
Falcons?
Atlanta. Isn't that crazy? They the lowest 3-and-out rate.
Jamie and I tied for correct.
I think you guys are going to get this one too. Who won the Stanley Cup yesterday?
Oh.
Woo! How excited were you guys? So what was your level of excitement?
I was happy. It's exciting. Local team done good again.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, it just felt like triumphant music.
definitely game of the week.
Yeah.
Maybe
It was,
not. Maybe
listen, it's funny to think of South Florida as a hockey mecca, but 3 straight cups, 2 championships in a row. It's pretty exciting. Having a conversation yesterday with a content creator who does some stuff in Florida and best teams in Florida history.
Oh wow. 2001 Hurricanes.
They were on the list. I don't know if it was
72 Dolphins should be on the list.
I don't know if it was like one season or like a stretch of seasons, because obviously like the Panthers, like which team is better, this one or the last one? I don't know exactly what the criteria was, but the Hurricanes were brought up. I brought up the Urban Meyer Gators, and the
Yeah, but that's not South Florida.
no, it's not South Florida, it's Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Florida.
Whole
Then
state
you've
of
got to put the weren't the Tampa Lightning the
Lightning,
last
yep.
team to
They were great.
back-to-back Stanley Cups?
And we
And
have the Bucks, Super Bowl win over the Chiefs.
the
The Dolphins.
LeBron era Heat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great teams.
Yep.
Yeah, no, the Panthers are really good.
I brought up just because it's obviously on the forefront of my mind, the Lake Mary Little League World Series championship.
Oh, yeah. There you go. All right, let's get into the show here. News.
By the way, the team watched the clip and not happy with me for saying that we have no chance. So we have a great chance. We have a great chance of making it to the state tournament. Very proud of my team. Very proud of my squad.
Did your son come to you and was like, Dad, what the hell, man?
Well, he kind of like watched it. We were driving in the car. I showed him. And then my wife goes, "Did you really just say you don't have a chance?" And then I got to practice yesterday and they're like, "Oh, that was so cool." Like, but why did you say we don't have a chance?
That is great.
Best coach
Whoops.
ever.
This is like when Gordon Bombay was having ice cream with the assistant coach for Iceland. Yeah, that did not go well. Okay, news and notes.
Motivation.
Zach Jackson of The Athletic says that Cleveland rookie tight end Harold Fannin Jr. still viewed more as a long-term project than an immediate contributor, which would be good news if you are a David Njoku guy or girl. Jacksonville GM James Gladstone says Travis Hunter does not tire and he could play an entire game. And that is all the news and notes I have. So let's go to the bold predictions. Number 1 from Dave. We'll go Dave, Jamie. Dave, your first bold prediction is that J.J. McCarthy will finish as a top 12 quarterback. He is currently QB 24 in CBS ADP and QB 17 in Fantasy Pros ADP. So J.J. McCarthy will be. This is Thomas's bold prediction, or did?
No, this is mine.
Yeah.
Thomas has nothing to do with this. Although I'm sure Thomas, I think he'll approve, but maybe he'll try and reverse kibosh and be like, "No, he's not. He's not that good, man." I could hear Thomas say something like that. Okay. Jamie's getting fired from his little league team. I'm getting fired from the show. Okay.
Can we just be serious for 5 seconds on this podcast? I mean, come on now.
I know serious podcasts are important these days.
Okay.
We make a lot of correlations
not looking
with
at you.
quarterbacks based on who they're throwing to. Why can't we do that in Minnesota? It's Justin Jefferson, it's Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Like, it's a great trio, and it's an improved offensive line. And I kind of feel like we lost sight of what J.J. McCarthy was like in college. Accurate. He had like a 72% completion rate overall. When he was under pressure, I looked at this up this morning, it was 63.4%. That was better than any of the other big 6 quarterback prospects in the draft. He was a rushing threat. If you take out his kneel downs and sacks, he had 237 yards on 61 carries. That's not a great average. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in 2023. He was better as a runner in 2022. And then there's the coaching factor and the scheme factor. This is Minnesota. This is Kevin O'Connell. Look at what he did with Sam Darnold last year. Look what he did with Kirk Cousins the 2 years prior. In the last 3 seasons, a Minnesota Vikings quarterback has had at least 22 fantasy points. That's 6 point per passing touchdowns in 27 of 51 games and at least 8 per year. This sets up for JJ McCarthy to have a shot at being at least a solid fantasy quarterback, but I bet he could squeak into like the top 12 with 20.5 to 21.0 fantasy points per game. I think he can get there, and it's at no cost on draft day. I'm skipping over Tua. I'm going to skip over Kyler Murray. That might be a mistake, but I'm going to skip over him, and I'm going to draft JJ McCarthy with one of my last picks.
It's funny because Dave sent his bold predictions in first. I was going to give you another one related to the quarterback class from last year. And if you throw McCarthy in there based on Dave's, there could be 5 top 12 quarterbacks from this class. Because I think Drake May is going to have a similar leap. We're all excited about Caleb Williams with everything that's going on there. Obviously, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix were, top 12 last year. So you can see them doing it again. So there's just a lot to like about these guys, especially if mostly McCarthy and May make the big leap. Well, I guess Caleb also. I shouldn't say that he's done it yet. So if those 3 guys make the leap, to join Daniels and Nix, like, could be incredible. We could be looking at what the 83 quarterback class was.
Yeah,
clearly different scenarios by far, but for fantasy purposes, just guys that are stepping into incredible situations as we saw last year. Some of them performed really well at times. And McCarthy, just given his opportunity with everything Dave said, coaching and talent around him, like, there's a lot to love about it. It's also worth, and I know, I don't know how much we want to go down the Bake Burger waiver wire ads, how much the bid was for Sam Howell and what the outlook could be there if McCarthy gets hurt again or struggles for whatever reason. Not that they're going to bench him unless it's an extended stretch, but like Dave said, you remember the year Cousins tore his Achilles. Josh Dobbs was a fantasy star, and Nick Mullins was a fantasy star. Like, this system is great, and hopefully McCarthy, lives up to the billing. But if not, you might want to take a flyer in a super flex or 2 quarterback league on Sam Howell just in case to put him on your bench to see what happens.
Yeah, totally unrelated to just quarterback play, but I went back and I looked. They played 7 games without Justin Jefferson in 2023. They actually averaged more points per game without Jefferson than they did with Jefferson that year. It just goes to
wild,
right? And it just goes to show you how good of a system that is.
Can I bring up one last thing on McCarthy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
First 3 games of the year are against Chicago, Atlanta, and I got to cheat and look. I thought I had it memorized. Chicago, Atlanta, Cincinnati. That's a great 3-game start.
Is Chicago a great start? Chicago.
Yeah, I don't think the Bears defense, I don't think they're going to be as good as like the top defenses in the league. Don't look at who they play in weeks 4 and 5, but weeks 1, 2, and 3. I don't think you could ask for, I mean, you could, but I think it's a good 3-game slate for McCarthy to ramp up and get hot, and fantasy managers will have the confidence to consider starting him against the Steelers and the Browns.
Is that in Chicago?
It is on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I like the fact that he avoids that weather game later in the season.
True. Okay, we're going to take a break and talk about the Jacksonville receivers when we come back on FFT.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Our next bold prediction is brought to you by Jamie Eisenberg. Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter will be the #1 wide receiver fantasy duo this season. That is very bold, especially when you have Cincinnati in the equation. So Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. So they are currently, their ADPs and CBS and Fantasy Pros ADP are almost identical. Brian Thomas Jr. is wide receiver 8 right now. Travis Hunter is either wide receiver 26 or 27, depending on the source. Hunter a round 4 or 5 pick. Brian Thomas Jr. looking like kind of an early round 2nd pick right now. But you say bold prediction, Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter will be the number 1 fantasy wide receiver duo this season.
What other duo is getting drafted before them after the Bengals? Is there another one?
Rams, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good call because Hunter's getting drafted ahead of Godwin, right? No, Fantasy Pros he's not. So the Bucks guys are also getting drafted ahead of him.
Also,
he is
the
on our
Lions.
site.
Also, Jamison Williams is going ahead of Hunter.
Yeah, so they're and the
It's
Chiefs.
City, Jamie.
Oh, Kansas City. Well, Kansas City, yeah, but Rice is way behind St. Brown. So it depends how you want to.
Sure, that's fair. In any event, the biggest thing for this clearly is how much time will Hunter spend on defense. And our guy Pete Prisco was just in Jacksonville last week, and he said that they're going to play him a lot on defense by what he thought comparatively to the NFL draft. Again, that does not mean he's not going to spend a lot of time on offense. Pete said he's going to spend a lot of time on offense, and the reports so far have been great on both sides of the ball. Understandably so. He's clearly a special talent, as we're all well aware. Won the Heisman for a reason. So if he's not focused more on defense than on offense, the upside is immense. And the best thing about this is, well, I guess the other big thing is, can Trevor Lawrence finally live up to the billing? But the best thing about this is really the Kevin O'Connell system, how great it is for JJ McCarthy. I think the Liam Cohen system and what it's going to do for this passing game. And we saw it last year. You had a top wide receiver duo from the Bucks, Chris Godwin, over 19 PPR points per game. We know what Mike Evans was with and without Chris Godwin. But I think we all know that the way that he finished his years, especially if he was chasing his milestones, he might have had the strong finishing kick as well, even after coming back from the injury without Godwin on the field. So I'm going to sort of Azer stat this in my own way, that Mike Evans would have finished better than what he was doing in the first 7 games with Godwin. And Godwin may have taken a little bit of a step back in terms of his production, but would have got great numbers from both these receivers. And I think that's going to be the case for Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter. You saw what Thomas was able to do last season. The last 6 games were amazing, just the way that he finished. And that was with Mac Jones. Obviously, there was not a lot of target competition on the field because of Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk not being there. So how good can Hunter be? That's the sort of thing that we don't know yet. But just based on his collegiate performance, based on what he's shown so far, based on the upside, I think these guys can challenge to be one of the best wide receiver duos. And if things break right, Trevor Lawrence has the type of season that he finally is capable of doing, and Liam Cohen's system comes into play, that we could see these two guys be up there with whichever duos you want to put behind the Bengals, because I think that's the easy one to say going into the season. But the Lions guys, the Chiefs guys, the Bucks guys, all those top tier wide receiver duos, the Dolphins when they're right, I think there's an opportunity here for the Bucks, the Jaguars duo to be one of the best and potentially best.
I think everything you said was great. Loved it all. I don't know if
you do have 2, wild cards as well that they really love Diami Brown. Again, just based on what they've seen so far and what they're saying. And Brenton Strange is going to be an interesting one too. Like, they're liking what he's showing so far too. So they have, guys that are going to be interesting. I do think, late round picks, Strange and Brown are worth the Flyers, especially if Hunter does spend too much time on defense. But you're talking about, 2 first-round wide receivers, one guy that was the first receiver taken in his class, and one guy who arguably had the, best rookie season of his class. So fun wide receiver duo, young guys that have a chance to be special.
Okay. So number one, I love the fact that you brought up Liam Cohen. I think it's a huge deal because he's a forward-thinking type of play caller. You can see it all over the place from what he did in Tampa Bay, both running the ball and the designs of his run plays and his passing plays. Trevor Lawrence has 2 receivers now that have the ability to rack up yards after the catch, that take some of the pressure off of him having to make perfect throws 15 plus yards downfield. Hunter especially, like, he adds like a little bit more of a physical element that Thomas doesn't have, but they can throw him screens and slants, and he can turn a 4 or 5 yard pass into a 25-yard play. Both of them can, obviously with speed, but Hunter can break away from a tackle and make that happen probably a little bit more often than Brian Thomas Jr. can. And so I would expect that those 2 guys are just going to run away with the target share kind of like how Evans and Godwin or Chase.
It'd be surprising if they didn't. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, you brought up Diami Brown and you brought up Brenton Strange. I don't know what's a realistic target share for those guys. Like there might be a week where one of them has 5 targets. I think
it's going to be those two guys. That's the best part of this. It's
for each.
They should get fed. And one more duo to bring up, just because I think, again, looking at ADP, the Eagles guys are both being drafted collectively ahead of the Jaguars guys.
Not in our
really interesting. Interesting.
Hunter is going a spot ahead of Devontae Smith,
and actually in our
going ahead of AJB.
In our ADP, Hunter's going ahead of Jamison Williams. In Fantasy Pros, yes. Jamison ahead of Hunter. It's very close. Okay.
Hey, one last thing. Are you worried about overdrafting BTJ?
No, I think there's 2 things to look at with him. And again, I'm guilty of this too. Like looking at just what he did in those last 6 games, like he still had some good numbers when, Kirk and Ingram were there, and obviously Lawrence was there. Not the same extent, he was, averaging, over 10 targets per game. The question will be is if Lawrence can get to the heights of what he was drafted to be, like these guys could just be amazing. Like there's so much upside here. So, I don't think you're looking at Thomas. Like I think he's priced appropriately, so he's going late round 1, early round 2. And unless you think that, like what Heath brought up, I think the last time we talked about bowl predictions that correct me if I'm wrong, this is when he said that Hunter would be better than Thomas, right, Adam?
Yes.
So unless you fear that, then you're overdrafting Brian Thomas.
Carolina and Cincinnati to begin the year for Jacksonville.
Very nice. Okay. Brian Thomas Jr., he averaged only 14 PPR fantasy points per game in his first 13 games, which would have been wide receiver 27 last year. And then he went bonkers in his last 4 games.
That's what we see from these high-end rookies.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It doesn't bother me at all.
Back end of the rookie season, like amazing.
No, it's worth noting that there was no Evan Ingram at that point. There was no Christian Kirk. I don't think Evan Ingram was playing at that point.
He had like 11 targets per game. He was going nuts.
Yeah.
I don't think either of those receivers will average that this year.
You're talking about just those last 4 games. Yes. For the season, 133 targets in 17 games. I'm taking the over on that for Brian Thomas Jr. I think we all would. We'll be disappointed if he gets 133 targets. Although on a per target basis, he was amazing. Dave, let's go to your second bold prediction here. It's Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is currently wide receiver 34 in ADP on CBS, wide receiver 32 in Fantasy Pros ADP. Calvin Ridley, your bold prediction is that he sneaks into the top 20 at wide receiver.
I want to make a bet on Cam Ward. I think that Cam Ward, obviously we know how good he was at Miami, and the offseason reports have been glowing about how he's done in Tennessee. And maybe he can be a quarterback that can elevate all of his pass catchers and be one of those guys who can take a solid receiver and make him good, a good receiver and make him very good. And if he can do that, Calvin Ridley is the most obvious target to be the one who elevates and becomes an asset in fantasy football. He averaged 7.1 targets per game last year, catching passes from Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. And his numbers stunk. He didn't even average 12 PPR points per game. 32 of 120 of his targets, that's 27% of his targets, were deemed uncatchable.
Yikes.
That's not going to happen this year. He's going to have a much lower rate there, which opens the door for him to catch more of those targets. And the targets could go up because who else is going to get targets in this offense? They've got 3 rookies that are competing for 1, maybe 2 spots. And Ridley, to me, just the experience he brings, combined with Cam Ward probably being a little bit better than even I thought he was, could lead to him being a top 20 receiver. I think he'll get good volume. I don't think Tennessee's defense is particularly good. I think they're going to be in a lot of games where they're going to have to throw a decent amount. And Calvin Ridley's going to quietly be one of those guys that gets the job done for fantasy managers.
Yeah.
His numbers last year with Mason Rudolph. What'd you just say? 14 PPR points get you to where?
Depends on the year. Say anywhere between 22 and 28.
So he was just over 14 PPR points per game when the game started by Rudolph.
And honestly, you just look at 11 games he played after DeAndre Hopkins got traded. His 17-game pace, Calvin Ridley, without Hopkins, was 80 catches, 1,289 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's it. Only 5 touchdowns. That was the problem on 130 targets. That's why he was only wide receiver 30 per game. But you love everything else. You love 1,300 yards and 130 targets. So really, he just got off to a terribly slow start in his first 6 games. He averaged 6 targets per game with DeAndre Hopkins, and then he was on pace for 130 targets after that. Yeah, I think my issue with Ridley is it just look at the last 2 seasons. Look at his entire career. I mean, he's had one amazing year. He was very good he was encouraging as a rookie. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but his last 2 years, he's played 17 games. He's had 120 or more targets. He's had barely over 1,000 yards, and he's been wide receiver 27 per game and wide receiver 40 per game, and now he's 30. So it's.
I think the thing you're hoping for.
Sorry, Jim, I'm just saying it's tough. Let me just finish. It's tough to draft him with like Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, the 49ers guys, when I feel like there could be big upside with some other players.
Yeah, put a pin in that. Let's go back to that in a minute.
I think the thing you're hoping for is Terry McLaurin, right? Rookie quarterback comes in and his production gets elevated. Cortland Sutton, rookie quarterback comes in. These are 2 guys. Last year, McLaurin was 28. Sutton's in that same age range. They had clearly their struggles. And I think it comes down to like how you'll feel about Ridley is, do you think Ward is going to be the type of quarterback to elevate him? Well, I think probably that's the easy answer is yes, given what he played with last year.
I don't know if that's so easy. I feel like, sorry to interrupt you, but I do feel like he'll be better than what they had last year, but I don't really think Cam Ward's going to have a great rookie season.
But he doesn't have to have a great rookie season to be good for Ridley. It's a question of, will he be great for Ridley? And so I think just to be good for Ridley, he's better than what Will Levis was, and hopefully better than what Mason Rudolph was, or at least on that level. And again, the 5 starts with Rudolph, he was 14.6 PPR points per game. Then if you take it to the other side of this is, you mentioned it, he struggled with DeAndre Hopkins. Well, how much do you like the talent around him? They bring in 2 rookie wide receivers that were both 4th-round picks. They bring in Tyler Lockett, who's 32 years old. They had a 4th-round tight end. And if you think Chigo Okonkwo is going to build off what he did at the end of last season, or maybe get back to what he did as a rookie, well, look at the competition around him. Like, there's not a lot of significant players that are going to eat away at his targets. So there's a lot to like about the situation. Now, again, these other players can certainly take away from him. And I think they're better than probably Nick Westbrook-Ikine, who was just scoring touchdowns last year, which, my gosh, if those start to go to Ridley, hey, we could have a big season here. So, Westbrook-Ikine scored 9 touchdowns last season. So I think the situation and the cost for Ridley is great. So the players you listed, Adam, yes, you could certainly make a case the other guys around him. If Waddle gets back to his first years of production, if the 49ers guys, whichever one you like, steps up. I don't know the other players you said, but
Addison. Actually,
Addison.
I actually don't think it was a great argument because
But no, it's fair. Given the guys around him. Again, we are talking about a Titans receiver. Ridley's resume is not exactly the most glowing, but situation and cost, I think, whether he's top 20 or top 25, he's going to outproduce his ADP if he gets, anything above top 30.
This is where I wanted to go with Ridley is on our offseason ADP. He's going ahead of, let's do the thought exercise. Tell me if you would take Ridley ahead of Chris Olave.
Yes.
Yep.
Waddle.
Yes.
Jawan Jennings.
No.
Okay. So you're taking Jawan over Ridley, but not Waddle and not Olave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jacoby Myers.
Oh, yeah.
Ridley.
Rizzy Pearsall.
Really?
I struggle with the Niners guys. As of now, I would
take Pearsall all day. Shakir.
1,000,000%.
Ridley.
Cooper Kupp.
Yes, Ridley. That's what I meant. Who'd you say? Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp.
Ooh.
I think that's non-PPR. That's
Ridley.
Yeah.
Ridley, but close.
So these are all receivers that are living at the 6-7 turn. If you can find Ridley round 7 or later, this is the cost argument. This is the ADP argument. This is not reaching. You're drafting him much closer to his floor. If you're getting him in round 7 or even round 8, maybe in those 10-team leagues, he falls that far. I think that's an easy green light.
Yeah. I think the 49ers are the ones that give me trouble. But most of those receivers, I feel like I don't feel like I'm missing out on huge upside necessarily if I'm taking Calvin Ridley over them. So I don't think Calvin Ridley has huge upside, but as your 3rd or 4th receiver, I think he could have great returns. for you, which is the case Dave was making.
Right.
Okay, Jamie's second bold prediction is about Justin Fields. He's usually a top 12 quarterback, but Jamie says he will be a top 5 quarterback, and Justin Fields currently QB 12 in CBS ADP, QB 9 in Fantasy Pros ADP, but Jamie says Justin Fields will be a top 5 quarterback.
I mean, saying top 10 would be too easy. I think, again, you're hoping that the guy that we saw as a rusher in Chicago and at times last year is consistent over the course of a hopefully 17-game season. I mean, if he runs for 1,000 yards like he did, he's one of 3 quarterbacks to ever do this. One guy's done it twice. If he can do it a second time like Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's going to be a cheat code. And I don't think he's a disaster as a passer, as sometimes people make him out to be. Is he going to be a 5,000-yard passer? No. Can he get to close to 4,000 yards, maybe eclipse the 4,000-yard, threshold? Man,
no chance.
Awesome.
No chance.
I mean, you say no chance. Could he get to 3,800?
I don't know. I'll give you
no chance.
I'll give you his 17-game pace in 4 seasons based on 90% snap share or higher. Only games with 90% snap share or higher. 3,251, 2,541, 3,547 yards, 3,134 yards. So I think it's a stretch to go 3,800 personally.
Okay, so let's go 3,500 then if he has a great season.
Yeah, he could be terrific with 3,500 passing yards if he's close to 1,000 rushing. Yeah,
that would put him in the top 5.
I don't know if it would put him in the top 5. That's a well. In 2023, I mean, we might as well just look at 2023. He was on pace for 3,547 yards, 866 rushing yards. He was only QB 14 per game, but he left 1 game early. So he was probably closer to, let's say, 11-ish per game. But if we gave him 1,000 yards, I don't know if he's getting to top 5. But he'd be a pretty damn good bold prediction if he can do 30. If he could do 3,500 passing yards and 900 rushing yards, you're gonna wish you had Justin Fields on your team.
He's one of the easiest and most fun quarterbacks to draft. And again, the best thing about this position is you can back him up with, if you want 2 guys with upside, Drake May and JJ McCarthy. If you want a safe floor, it's Brock Purdy and Tua or Jared Goff. There's so many options that you can pair him with and still be fine at the position and maybe have somebody else who's going to challenge to be a top 10 quarterback. But the way that he plays for the game that we play, it's just too hard to avoid trying to target him at his cost.
5 rushing touchdowns in 6 starts last year.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to finish with this on Justin Fields. I said he's QB 9 in Fantasy Pros ADP, and it just clicked. That's almost certainly 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, more so than 6, whereas ours is 6-point, and he's QB 12. So that makes sense. Jamie, I said, where was he in 2023 when he was on pace for 3,500 passing yards, 866 rushing yards? If you remove week 6, which I did with his 17-game pace, he left that game early, he actually would have been QB 5 per game in 4-point, QB 8 per game in 6-point. So that, yeah, he was, and I have him in 2022 as QB 6 per game. So
he had 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah, he had in 15 games, he had 1,143 rushing yards. That's amazing. So it's just very realistic. It's very doable. I think the last thing, I don't know if you care about this, Dave, maybe you would care more. You cite consistency a lot. I have him in his last 3 seasons, 33 healthy games, and he has scored fewer than 20 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues in 17 of them. So half the time he's having a disappointing game. He's just really very little consistency with Fields.
I mean, what gives me the spilkies about Fields is he's not a polished passer. He's got 1 great receiver. We debated yesterday who the second best receiver in New York would be, and the options were Josh Reynolds, Breece Hall, and a rookie tight end, Mason Taylor. He has a first-time NFL play caller who we don't know a ton about. We think that it's going to be pretty much a West Coast type of offense, but we don't know how that's going to be. It's a first-time head coach that's defensive-minded who wants to run the football a ton. Fields has once said that he doesn't want to be a 1,000-yard rushing guy. He doesn't want to lean on his legs. That was 2 years ago. Maybe his mind has changed. I think what encouraged me to flip to Justin Fields as a top 12 tight end to draft is that the Jets don't have another option. Like, they're going to have to go 0-5 right off the bat for them to even think about turning to Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
The other way that
Well,
they might turn to
may
Tyrod
need
Taylor is if Justin Fields
playing
gets
tight
hurt.
end.
Yeah. Imagine if we could actually start him at tight end. Sorry, Dave. You said top 12 tight end.
I don't know. Okay. No, I don't think you can do that. What I was going to say is they will turn to Tyrod Taylor if Justin Fields gets hurt. We know he does have an injury history. We know that running backs, or quarterbacks rather, that run do have a tendency to get dinged up and sometimes take on a serious injury. And that's happened to Fields before. His schedule to begin the year, we seem to be doing this a lot on today's show. Steelers in week 1, Buffalo in week
Revenge
2,
game.
Tampa in week 3.
Is that why they put Steelers Jets week 1 for the Justin Fields revenge?
Yeah,
game?
it's the Justin Fields revenge game.
That's right.
Okay, let's take a break here.
Johnny has such a great comment in the chat.
Johnny. Okay. This my villain arc.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of good feedback about New Adam, about that episode. So I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll talk about
Hollywood Azer. Such a good comment.
What'd you say?
Someone called you Hollywood Azer.
Hollywood Azer, baby. So I have these goofy glasses today. I don't know why. We bought them for my son. And he was gonna wear them to school, but he didn't. And
Isn't that what Homer Simpson wears at work?
yeah, I was gonna it looks like the ones he falls asleep in, but my wife says it looks like Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he becomes a tune at the end. He goes, "Remember me, Eddie." I don't know if you. So
Great reference.
yeah, okay. We'll be right back with
Judge's
Travis
name.
Kelce. What's that?
What's the judge's name?
In the movie or his real name?
His real name was Christopher
Lloyd. I don't remember. What was it?
I don't know.
Oh,
We'll tell you after the break.
all right. We'll be right back after this.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays
He's got his receiver touchdown.
filled with rematches
Oh, the play of the year.
and rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns and an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Travis Kelce is going to be 36 years old in October. He was the number 12 tight end per game in non-PPR last year, number 7 per game in full PPR. He did have 97 catches, 133 targets, turned that into only 3 touchdowns and only 823 yards. But Dave says, bold prediction, Travis Kelce finishes top 3 among tight ends.
You watch him play last year. He looked like the oldest, slowest football player since the days of, black and white film, where they're wearing leather helmets. He looked terrible. So what's one way you get faster? You lose a lot of weight, and he's trimmed down 25 pounds.
I thought it was more. I thought he lost
130 pounds, Dave. 130 pounds.
Whatever. You think, how can you lose 25 pounds in one offseason, especially if you're a football player? You're not supposed to be carrying 25 pounds of excess flab or whatever. They're not me. You see video of him at minicamp. He looks leaner, and he's moving pretty well. I'm not going to say that he's going to be, fast by any stretch of the imagination, but I like that he's lost weight. I think that that's a good thing for him. I think that keeps him in the realm of not being a sloth out there and having like 0 yards after the catch. I think he can actually gain some decent yardage after the catch moving forward. And I think he's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of catches because as different as teams kind of follow trends defensively, I still think the Chiefs are going to play a lot of zone coverage this year. And that means Mahomes is going to have to throw short. And if he's throwing short, that's good for Rashee Rice. It's not as good for Xavier Worthy, but it's going to be great for Travis Kelce, especially if defenses start thinking, maybe we need to start covering those younger players a little bit more and the older guy a little bit less. And there was no drop off in targets per game for Travis Kelce last year. I looked this up this morning. 2022 averaged about 9 per game. That's awesome. 2023, he averaged 8.1. Last year, it was 8.3. So he's been consistently at least 8 targets per game each of the last 3 years. I don't think they're going to fade him completely out of the offense. It's just a matter of how many touchdowns can he get. Well, 2 years ago, he had 5, and he was still one of the top tight ends in fantasy football. I think he can get 5 touchdowns in 2025 and go back to being one of the better tight ends. I think he's actually becoming more of a bargain on draft day than I ever thought I would believe. And it all started with him losing weight and the thought that the defenses that play against Kansas City, they're still going to be scared of the deep ball against Mahomes. So they'll settle for those underneath throws to Kelce.
I'm glad you mentioned 2023 because 2023, he did have only 5 touchdown catches, Travis Kelce, and he actually was the number 3 tight end overall and the number 1 tight end per game in 2023. And that was with a preseason foot injury, and he missed week 1. So, and then I think he was pretty good in the playoffs. Yeah, in the playoffs, he averaged 89 yards per game and scored 3 touchdowns. So I was very much in on Travis Kelce last year because I said he finished as the number 1 tight end per game with only 5 touchdowns on 121 targets. And that's fluky. But here's the thing. It's not just about the touchdowns coming back because he had 3 last year. It's also the yards. He was horrible in terms of all his metrics. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. So he did nothing after the catch. He was one of the worst tight ends in yards per target. He was one of the worst tight ends in yards per catch. He was middle of the pack in yards per route run. And he averaged 4 targets per game the first 3 games of the season with Rashee Rice on the field. And then, then was like heavily, heavily targeted after that. No Marquise Brown for much of the year. Xavier Worthy earning more targets late in the year. I can make cases for and against, and I will make more cases for and against later as I want to talk about the role that Patrick Mahomes plays in this. But Jamie, let's get your thoughts on this bold prediction of Travis Kelce as a top 3 tight end.
I mean, certainly could happen. You have the touchdown spike. He has a Mark Andrews touchdown season and still gets the opportunity to be as involved in the offense as he has been, and easily could be a top 3 tight end. It will be interesting to see which tight end of the top 3 doesn't stay in the top 3 of Bowers, McBride, and Kittle, that he knocks them out. But, like we talked about with the quarterbacks yesterday, like you could still have great production and all be great. A great production across the board, and they're all, fantastic from a fantasy perspective. I think the thing, you sort of brought this up is like, we haven't seen, if everybody's healthy, this diverse of receiving core for the Chiefs in the Mahomes Kelce era. It's been, sort of one other guy, 2 other guys, along with we could have 3 pretty solid receivers here. If Marquise Brown, he talked about this. There was a story on NFL.com about, he didn't feel like he was right at all last year when he came back, and Worthy the way that he finished, and clearly the way that Rice, has shown his first year plus before the injury. Like this could just be too many people taking away touches from Kelce. And so, his production comes in a little bit of a different way. But the best part about it is, and Dave touched on this, and I think the same thing with Mahomes, like we've been drafting these guys as top 3 at their position for the last 2, let's say just 2 years, based on how they've gone. And yes, he rewarded you in 2023, not to the way you probably expected based on where he was drafted, because he was a first-round pick in 2023, or borderline first-round pick in 2023. The production that you should get now based on the cost will hopefully be great. Mahomes is the 6th quarterback, and Kelce, I think, is the 6th tight end or 5th tight end at best. Like that's a hopeful production return on the value that you haven't seen from him in the last 2 years for each of those guys. So like you said, Adam, if Mahomes bounces back and plays like the guy that we've seen early in his career, then everybody should benefit. But this guy might benefit the most because this is still going to be his 3rd down, need a, tough catch over the middle of the field. He's going to lean on him. He's going to lean on him in some red zone opportunities. And as the season goes on, I think similar to what we talked about with Mike Evans, like this may be a guy you want to trade for, because that's what we've seen the last couple of years is the target spike the last, 2 seasons, and the production tick up, especially as they got to playoffs. We don't get the benefit of that, but maybe we see it, come December as Travis Kelce starts to become a little bit more of what he's going to be if they make a Super Bowl run.
He was pretty bad in the playoffs, though. He was good against Houston, very good against Houston, and then horrible against Buffalo and Philadelphia.
He looked old. He looked slow.
He did. He really did. But yeah, maybe the weight loss will help. And let's take a look, Dave. Let's take a look at the role Mahomes plays in this. Okay, so we have a graphic here. There were 9 games that Patrick Mahomes threw for more than 250 yards. And in those 9 games, this is just regular season, Mahomes averaged 288.4 yards per game. Kelce in those games 16.2 PPR fantasy points per game. That would have been tight end 1. In the 7 games that Mahomes threw for fewer than 250 yards, he only averaged 190 yards per game passing. And Kelce averaged only 7 points per game, which would have made him tight end 31. So Patrick Mahomes, a career low 246 passing yards per game last year. When he went over 250 yards, Kelce was basically tight end 1. When he went under 250 yards, Kelce was tight end 31. It's a huge range because it's not like 251 to 249. You know what I'm saying? But good Mahomes was good Kelce. Bad Mahomes was terrible Kelce. It makes a difference. So what do you make of that, Dave?
I mean, this is how it is with pass catchers and quarterbacks. So when a quarterback does well, of course his targets are going to do well. We could run these numbers. Is there a correlation between Mahomes and Worthy when it comes to his yardage? I bet it's the exact same thing.
Well,
we can do this for everybody. To me, this doesn't.
No, I don't know about that. Well, Mahomes and Rice, for example.
Well, which of these games are with Rice?
Only one of the 250 plus yard games were with Rice,
Right?
And 2 of the 7. But Rice. Okay, Mahomes threw for 291, 151, and 217 yards in the first 3 games of the year. Rashee Rice was unaffected. 103 yards, 75 yards, 110 yards. So I don't know about where this really stood out to me. I guess my broader point is that when we talk about Kelce and this and that, you do have a possibility of Patrick Mahomes throwing for 1,000 more yards than he threw for last year. Certainly.
But you also have Rice for more than 3 games. You have Marquise Brown for more than 4 or 5 games that he finished, and you have a better Worthy.
I guess my point would be, agree or disagree with this. The only way Travis Kelce has a great season is if Patrick Mahomes has a great season.
Sure.
But you also referenced 2023 when Mahomes was bad.
Yeah, right. But they didn't have Rashee Rice was good for 6 games that year. They didn't have Xavier Worthy that year. They didn't have Marcus.
I think it's a fair correlation. Yeah. You're not going to get a great year out of Kelce and all. I mean, they're all going to. I shouldn't say they're all. Probably 2 or 3 of these guys are going to be busts if you're considering Marquise Brown a potential non-bust at his ADP. Yeah. But the 2 or 3 of these guys are not going to be good if Mahomes isn't good. Like, you need Mahomes to have some level of bounce back based on where these guys are all being drafted first 6 rounds.
Or he could have the Mark Andrews touchdown year. That's the other avenue to it. All right, one more bold prediction. It's from Jamie. Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. produce like the first-round picks we expected them to be in this upcoming season. They are currently wide receivers 15 and 18. Wilson 15, Harrison 18 in CBS, and 14 and 15 in Fantasy Pros. So you could be looking at the 3-4 turn around that range for Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. in a 12-team league. And Jamie's bold prediction is that they will both produce like the first-round picks they were coming out of the NFL draft.
Well, no, the first-round picks that we wasted on them last year in fantasy.
Oh, that's what you meant? I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they weren't drafted. Harrison was drafted in the first round last year. I'll start with Wilson. By all accounts, having a fantastic OTAs and minicamp. And the nice thing, according to reports, and this goes back to what Dave said about a new play caller, they're moving him around and they're playing him in the slot. They're playing him outside. They're trying to make, easy throws for Justin Fields. And, Dave mentioned this, like, there's one target getter right now that we feel confident in with the Jets, and it's Garrett Wilson. And so we saw what DJ Moore did in the year with Justin Fields. And so there's the potential for Fields to still support a receiver at a very high level that's got a lot of talent. I still think Garrett Wilson has a lot of talent. Oh, by the way, these guys were teammates at Ohio State, so the rapport should be there. And hopefully that just picks up where they left off from their collegiate days. But just he's going to get fed targets. And I'll go back to what I said yesterday. Yes, it wasn't a great year for Garrett Wilson by any measure. Beginning part of the season, he was struggling. Second half of the season when they had Devontae Adams struggling. But I think what we saw before the Adams trade, like, things were starting to improve to whatever level. He had the huge spike game. I don't think that was going to be the norm moving forward, but there was obviously something that was starting to connect with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it was just Rodgers getting comfortable off the Achilles tear because he didn't look good at the start of the season. But now you have hopefully force-fed targets for a guy that has, I still think, elite-level production on his resume, and I'm excited about Garrett Wilson. So he's my favorite of this duo. Marvin Harrison's harder to buy did have 8 touchdowns. That's not something I think that we mentioned enough of, that, despite everything that went bad for him, he still scored 8 touchdowns as a rookie. I'll go back to what I said. And you said, Adam, it took to year 3, but same numbers that his father had in his rookie season. And
It was
we know
year
that was
4.
eventually.
I think it was year
Year 4?
4 for him.
It was
senior, right?
It was Peyton Manning's second season.
There's still clearly the potential here. And listen, I don't love the bulked up Marvin Harrison. I'd like him to be a little bit faster, but if he's going to use that to win on more contested catches, and hopefully that's the case, like, it's not going to take a huge leap if he stays in the 8 touchdown range for him to get to be a top 15 caliber wide receiver. Like, there's still that potential for him in his second year. So yes, clearly a disappointment, struggled in his rookie campaign, did score 8 touchdowns. I know some of it was, he had a 3 touchdown game in week 2. There's just so much to like about what this kid can be. And I'm going to buy back into both in 2025.
At what price?
Garrett Wilson to me is a round 3 pick, and Marvin Harrison I would look in round 4.
I don't have a problem with that, especially since we were taking those guys at least 2 rounds higher each.
Yep.
A year ago. I'm much more concerned about Marvin Harrison, to be honest with you, because he's not the only show in town like Garrett Wilson is. And if he's adding weight and he's adding muscle, I have a hard time believing that he's suddenly going to get faster. And I think that the reason why he added all this weight is so he could win on contested catches. He was awful in contested catch situations last year, and he didn't have any yards after the catch last year.
He broke 1 tackle.
He needs to get better there. So yeah. I think they're basically forfeiting whatever he might be as a downfield threat in exchange for him to be more of a, not like a possession receiver, but, kind of a guy that's going to win more 15 yards and closer to the line of scrimmage. They already have one of those guys in Trey McBride. So I worry a little bit about just what that target volume will be for Harrison and how reliant he will be on that target volume game after game after game. Can he get 8 targets per game? Probably. But I might not want to. I wouldn't take him in round 3. Let's just put it that way.
Does it bother you that there have been, this is actually higher than I thought. There have been 105 wide receivers with 100 or more targets over the last 3 seasons. Garrett Wilson's career. Garrett Wilson is 49th in yards per route run. Marvin Harrison Jr., incidentally, is 50th. Don't see a lot of good receivers below that. Once you get to, I would say, Jordan Addison's 52nd, JSN's 54th. And then after that, it is not anyone that we're excited about. Garrett Wilson, he gets 140 targets or more every year, and he's never been that good. So what is changing for him? I guess the broader question, does it bother you that he has done so little with his targets in his NFL career?
I don't know if this is the quarterback to fully unleash his potential. But you think about the guys that he's played with, and it's been pretty awful.
Yeah, right? I know. But again, but that's the thing. I just don't think, Justin Fields. Well, finally, he's got a good quarterback.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But that's what we thought last year with Aaron Rodgers, 2 years ago with Aaron Rodgers. This is
where advanced metrics, I don't want to be a slave to them, because I got to believe Garrett Wilson's a better receiver than this. I mean, I don't think he's Deontay Johnson. I think he's good. I don't know why we haven't seen it.
It's true, but at some point, you are what you are. And I think we could be heading there with Garrett Wilson, especially if he underwhelms for a 4th straight year.
The Jets will be heading there because they may decide like he's just not worth the 5th-year option. And
right. Well, yeah.
Don't you feel like they're going to give him a contract? He really wants a new contract. It seems like they're heading in that direction, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Not that everyone who gets a contract is good.
I think if there is a silver lining to Fields, it's that last year, his efficiency was on par with Rodgers. Rodgers just had a higher touchdown rate. I don't think Fields can. Rodgers was at 5%, I want to say. I don't think Fields can get there. But I don't think we're drafting Garrett Wilson to be a touchdown maven. I think we're drafting him because we think he can see 160 targets. Maybe he catches 90 of them.
You're hoping him to be Puka-like.
I don't think he can see that many targets because I just don't think Justin Fields throws enough.
I think DJ Moore did the 2023 season?
DJ Moore had 136 targets. He was on pace for 140 in Justin Fields' healthy games.
So, okay. So that's probably the number. And he caught what, 80 something balls?
He was on pace for 101 catches with Justin Fields. He caught 96 for the season.
Sure.
Pickens was on pace for 125 targets. That's in 6 games with Justin Fields. There's not really much else. I can't see him getting more than 140 targets. Well, I'd be surprised. What about you? 140 targets for Garrett?
140 is safe.
That's great.
I agree.
You get that at the 3-4 turn. That's really good. Yeah.
Do you think one of the reasons why the Jets went so hard after Fields was because they knew that he had a relationship with Wilson?
I'm sure it helped. I mean, you also look at the quarterback market being what it was. Like, who are they going to get?
It is interesting to look at the Steelers and Jets organizations, and one of them went all in on Justin Fields and one of them went all in on Aaron Rodgers, and the other team had that quarterback last year, and we'll see who ends up looking better, right?
I think, well, first off, the cost was better for the Steelers. They got Rodgers at a cheaper price. The other part of it, though, is the coaching. Like, it's much easier for Mike Tomlin to deal with Aaron Rodgers at this point than it is for Aaron Glenn as a first-year coach. Like, that would have been a nightmare for any coach coming in his first-year job, as we saw.
I'm not sure if you caught this, but while we were talking about Travis Kelce, I did mention Tyreek Hill. I did say his name, so kept that going. Let's read a few emails before we head out here. This one is.
I would take Tyreek over Wilson.
What'd you say?
I would take Tyreek over Garrett Wilson.
They're very close for me.
I would, you know me, I'd take Tyreek over the combination of Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison. You'd add their fantasy points that won't even equal Tyreek. Bold prediction. Tyreek will outscore.
He's already made once Olympian quit.
That's true. Yeah. The guy doesn't want to race him. You know he's going to lose.
I'll race him.
Maybe we save emails for Friday. Thomas, what's our Friday topic? I apologize. What are we looking at Friday? We don't know yet. Something.
Did the show die?
Sorry, I was on muted. It's a mini camp notes and mailbag, so you could save it if you want.
Yeah, all right. If for those of you,
if you had a 50-meter head start and a 100-meter race against Tyreek Hill, would you beat him?
No.
Oh,
hold on.
Wow.
Is there an Aurelio's pizza at the finish line?
Whatever you need.
Yes, I can beat him.
That's a great question. Who thinks they would beat Tyreek Hill if they had a 50-meter start and a 100-meter dash? I think I would beat him. Barely.
I really don't think I could beat him.
Barely. Jamie?
I don't think
so. Question for you. Because if I emailed you and said I'm going to read your question on today's show, I'm sorry, we're going to save it to Friday. I was played softball on Monday.
Oh, here we go.
I lined a ball up the middle. Bases loaded. I lined the ball up the middle. Runner at first base doesn't get a great read on it. Gets thrown out at second base.
No hit.
Are you giving me come on, give me a hit for that.
Nope, fielder's choice. Sorry.
That's what I said too. Okay, but I'm up to 2 hits, no errors in 3 games since.
You're the guy hitting in front of you owes you a single.
Yeah, a little bit. I just hit the ball so hard that he just couldn't tell. It was just a screamer.
That happens a lot, though. 4 outfielders, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for watching and listening.
You get the RBI, though.
I did get the RBI. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We lost. Okay. We'll talk
I wouldn't bench you.
Right. Yeah. I'm back to second base, by the way. I don't think I told you that development.
Oh, upgrade.
Promoted again. Yes.
Who got hurt?
If you shave Sunday morning, our second baseman isn't going to be there if we have to play. You want to come see if you stack up with the 13-year-olds?
I mean, I think I could pass the test just from a look standpoint.
Oh, you definitely would pass the test.
Yeah.
Jamie, you've got to try and win games.
Yeah.
After your comment.
Well, I would hope that a 40-year-old man can, do some damage.
I actually think I'd be pretty good.
Compete against 13-year-olds?
Yeah, against 13. I mean, but they're good 13-year-olds. They're great.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can do this. I know we have our big tennis match for charity for St. Jude. Maybe when's your next trip to Florida?
I don't know.
Maybe what we can do is we can do some sort of you facing My pitching staff.
I would love to. Oh man, that's gonna be so embarrassing. How fast do they throw?
Our ace, who threw a no-hitter in the district championship, struck out 17 kids. Joey Wagner, fantastic performance. There is no chance you would be able to put a bat on the baseball.
Wow.
Does he throw? Okay, can I just have him throw fastballs?
He would throw fastballs by your face. There's no chance. Like he throws from. It's 50-foot mound, by the way. So he throws mid-70s from there.
Wow.
I could hit that. I mean, I hit 7 miles per hour at softball. I think I could hit 70 at baseball.
So what we could do is we're gonna work on this. You're gonna come down to Florida. I'm gonna get the kids to come out there, and what's it gonna be? Every strikeout, maybe we take bids on more strikeouts or hits, like pro A's
And if
or
you
not.
strike out, you have to donate $100 to St. Jude.
Okay, then I'm not doing this. I will run out of money. Oh. All right, we're out of here, everybody, and have a nice Juneteenth. We'll talk to you on Friday on Fantasy Football Today.